So welcome to this edition of Real People. I'm going to be talking to Graham Morgan, author, this afternoon. And so you have been in my radar for quite a while as an author. You live, I think, in Cardress or around about that area.
Yes, I do, for the last 10 years.
Right, okay. Mm-hmm. And I think we've come across each other in various author events and things like that.
Yes, we have, yeah.
But Graham's got an interesting backstory, I guess, to becoming an author. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you slipped into that?
Well, I always loved writing, but most of my life I've been working in the world of mental health, helping people like me have a voice about our lives, our treatment, the world we live in. And for many years I would write speeches, write reports, write creative things, and then that gradually morphed into writing for my own self. In a way, I got fed up speaking for other people and thought, I want to tell my story. Yeah. And so that's how it happened.
So the stories, I guess, are pretty much autobiographical, is that right?
It is. They're all, my writing is all memoirs or around mental health. Okay. It's a mixture of love stories about being with Wendy and her children and Dash the dog, yep. But also about being in hospital, about my diagnosis of schizophrenia, about being compulsory treated, and about my previous family and all sorts of things, as well as the natural world. It's a whole mesh of things, but it makes more sense when you read it.
Yeah, it's a little world once you get in the book, it opens up. Do you want to talk a little bit about, I guess, your involvement in mental health? Did it start with you having a problem yourself?
Yes, it did. I first went into hospital when I was 20, right. Which unfortunately is 42 years ago. It shows how old I am. Okay. So that was one of the old asylums, and as someone who'd come from quite a privileged background, it was a huge wake-up call to be somewhere like that. And
where was that?
That was down in England, in Sheffield, right. In a place called Middlewood, which closed many decades ago. But it was a frightening place.
Quite a grim place.
Yeah, it was. It was like your horror story of an asylum. Gosh. Many of the people there were lovely, but there were holes in the walls, there were holes in the windows, there were beds about a foot apart. It was very noisy. It was quite a frightening place. But I did meet some beautiful people. Even though it was frightening and bad things happened, I made some good friends there too.
Right, wow. So, that sounds like a horrific experience, and you're only 20 years old. You're still a kid in a way. How did you get through that? Or what happened after that? Did you obviously get out at some point?
I suppose how I got through that, this sounds very corny, I fell in love. That was what got me through it. At that time I just was lonely, despairing and very unhappy and very isolated. And I fell in love with someone who loved me, and for a time all was very good. Right. Then it fell apart, right. And then life for a time was very good. I spent a lot of time as a yacht skipper in the Far East and places like that, sailing across the Atlantic.
Did you think, was your father involved in that kind of business, yacht business?
My dad's business was selling yachts. He was originally in the RAF, but then it was selling yachts, so I was lucky to go through the business to sail other people's yachts for them.
Right, so you were selling other people's yachts for them?
Yeah, and then...
good job if you can get it.
It was a very good job. It was lovely to be around Coral Islands and on reefs and things. It was a good job.
There must be a book in that as well at some point.
There's a book I don't talk much about, which talks about that sometimes, which got written but really needs rewritten, so I pretend it doesn't exist.
Okay, until maybe you read it.
So I should maybe not have said it on.
Okay, we'll not discuss that one just now. But okay, so then you went through a period of relative calm, and then things started to fall apart again.
Yeah, I got married and life was blissful. It was really, really good. And then about 5 months after my son was born, I had what's known as my first psychotic episode up in Edinburgh, and spent 3 or 4 months in hospital and was sectioned for the first time. And that was very hard for everyone, especially my family. And really, I've been in and out of hospital over the years since then. I've been lucky recently in that although I'm treated compulsorily, I haven't been in hospital for the last 12 years at least. So that's been really good. And I do have a lovely life. I do have experiences and beliefs that most people don't have, which can be very distressing. But usually life is brilliant. Today I was walking at the back of Cardress with Wendy and Dash the dog, and talking to other dog owners, and then when I get back later I'll be with Wendy and the children. We'll have our tea. It's quite a nice life, really.
That's nice. So talking about the books, the ones I want to talk about, the two here, can I pick them up now?
Yes.
To show people. First one, Start, and this was written afterwards.
That was Blackbird Singing, yes.
Blackbird Singing. Do you want to give us a brief overview of the books? We'll
Yes.
start first of all. Start with
Right.
Start.
Start was the first book I wrote.
Yeah.
That started in a strange way. I just started writing one day. I had no idea I was writing a book. I wrote about 140,000 words in a sort of welter of writing, and then spent the next 5 years editing it down to about 70,000 words.
Right, okay.
But its intervening chapters are about meeting Wendy and the bliss of early love. Then there's a number of chapters around being in hospital, and some of the sadness that can come with that. There's a few musings on how life could be so much better for people with a mental illness. And then there's talk within it about the fracturing of my previous marriage and no longer seeing my son anymore. So it's a way of giving voice to experiences that some people don't have and don't know much about.
You said something quite interesting there, which was having an insight into, mental health for other people, perhaps to draw from. And I know you've been actually involved in, with the Scottish Government in putting some of the laws together around mental health. Is that right?
Yes, it's a very strange thing that I, who am sectioned under the Mental Health Act, have been part of creating some of the laws that apply to us. So that started first about 20 years ago, and then I was with a review of the legislation that applies to anyone with a mental health problem or learning disability or autism or dementia, and that reported to government about a year ago.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what's happening with that review, but it was exhausting and very exciting
But
to
you're
do.
part of the framework, I guess, that of Scottish Government and mental health, the whole thing. You've also got an MBE.
I do.
We don't all have one of those, but that's for your work in the field of mental health, which is
Yeah,
great.
I've spent really, since leaving that old asylum, I've really spent most of my life working either in a voluntary capacity or in a paid capacity to give voice to people like me, and spent many years in the Highlands doing that, where we went into schools.
You set up some groups as well in the
Yeah,
Highlands?
we created a group called Hug Action for Mental Health, and then for people with learning disabilities, People First Highlands.
Is Hug still on the go?
It still exists, yeah. It's still going strong. It's been in schools. It's done lots of media stuff. It creates reports on what we want. It speaks.
I think you were on TV, I think, last week, so you're quite often. You've been,
Oh, yes, so I was,
sometimes you get taken in to talk about things. You also addressed the UN, I think, at one point.
What
was that about?
2018,
Yeah.
I was
Heard
speaking with the United Nations Committee Against Torture
Right.
in a closed session to talk about the experience of people who have been sectioned under the Mental Health Act. Within the United Nations, there's a debate as to whether being compulsory treated is seen as cruel and degrading treatment or whether it saves lives, which can get very heated. And I was giving evidence to the committee on those subjects.
So just to clarify for people who probably don't know, I didn't before I met you first time. Being sectioned but still being out in the community means you have to have compulsory injections or something?
It does. I get an injection every 2 weeks.
Really, as much as that?
So I have to turn up, and if I don't, all sorts of horrible things will happen. But
Oh, okay.
luckily, so far, I have done, so that's okay.
And things have been going quite smoothly since that?
Things have been fine. There have been a few blips, and sometimes life is not so good, but usually life is really, really nice.
I just want to say I've read both books, actually. I had the pleasure of doing that, and because we've met over the years in different events. And could you maybe just pick a little piece just to give people a flavour of the book? Is that okay? You can maybe
I could do, yeah.
read a little bit? Just maybe.
Yes. This is one I read quite a lot.
Okay.
I'll stop halfway through because you'll get really fed up with me. But
The
this
big
is-
red light will come on.
This, this is a love story to Wendy. It's called At the Showies. I cannot hear you. The music is beating its way to the clouds above. It's all around me. It's inside me, inside my ears, filling them so I see your lips moving, but I cannot understand what you say. We walk hand in sweaty hand, way, way above me at the top of a pole, running with throbbing lights, sit people waving their legs into space, waiting to turn and tumble round and round in the black night sky. We stick insects, arms and legs flailing. Everywhere there are the cries and screams of excited teenagers whirling and twirling on garish poster girl light-popping, music-shouting machines. We walk on the grass, hand in sweaty hand, watching, dodging the grunt people, the crowding people, looking at the hot dogs and the onions and the chips, saying to each other we don't want to go on the dodgems and both feeling a twinge of regret that we're so scaredy. On the road home, the ground is littered with plastic pint glasses from the Nairn Highland Glames. A man sways up the road talking loudly to himself. We kick the glasses down our street, giggle at our loutishness and slip inside my doorway to kiss and cuddle. So that's a flavour. That's one of the nice bits of the romance.
Okay.
Other bits are about
Bit more
really
gritty.
horrible bits, but it's nice to have a bit of lightness in it too. Otherwise, everyone will get really fed up.
Yeah, I
reading
guess.
it.
Yes. No, that is very much a case of light and shade, the book. And Graham, thanks very much for coming in. Where can people get the books? I'm thinking your Facebook page.
Facebook page, I'll put a link up on my Facebook, Graham Morgan Author on Facebook.
Okay. So that's probably the best place. They can get them on Amazon, I suppose. and
They
things
can
as
get them on Amazon too,
But
yeah.
it's better if they get it
It's better to get it direct.
from you if they can. So we'll put that link up, and thanks again for coming in.
Thank you so much.
And that's it for this episode of Real People. Until next time,